We didn't cut anything, folks. We're just not going to name names. But
No.
out of curiosity, so being the artist who's creating the poster for either the tour or for the show, um, are you working with Billy like directly at this level, or are you working more with his management team, kind of giving it direction? What's that kind of process like for some of these more up and coming bands that are actually finding stronger and stronger footing and more establishment?
Yeah. So I want to say that the most like active and welcome participation from any artist that I've worked with was Daniel Donato of Cosmic Country. Dude was like really answering my emails, giving like solid notes. Like the first time I remember doing a poster for Twiddle and Phil Lesh and Friends. They were doing a show at up in New York, and I remember getting an email being like, Phil saw the poster, he loves it, and I was like, oh wow, but that was still secondhand. They told me, oh, he told me to tell you that he really thought that was cool. But with Daniel Donato, he was like he was in there. He was chatting about it, giving suggestions. And so sometimes it's really fun to get notes and to actually chat with the person who you're making it for. Oftentimes it's art directors who in their own ways are like just fantastic people. And often, the worst case scenario you get is like, somebody who's like, I'm going to run it by the band. And then you have to wait, a week and a half to hear anything, like that's the worst that it gets. Um, you're
Yeah,
always getting some kind of feedback, but I think that certain bands certainly have trust in their art director that they're going
I,
to see an initial sketch and then, it right before it's done. And that's about it.
it's kind of the same way actually with guests on the show. I mean, like 9 times out of 10, I edit the episode, send it off, and there's maybe a thing or two that needs to get snipped, and that's it. And then uh, I remember season 3, Mark Serlov's episode. I think we went back and forth like 9 or 10 times with me and him and his team, and I loved it. It was
Yeah.
so great. That was my first time really working with the podcast guest who had like really significant input on how they wanted their episode to appear. And, Mark, of course, being an artist as well, you know, paint is his medium. He wants that expressed,
Yeah.
visually in the episode. So he had a very specific vision for how he wanted the episode to look, which taught me a whole bunch of things about editing. And it made for a great final product because I knew that they were actually reviewing the episode every time and not just like skimming
Yeah.
through it to see if everything like aligned. They were actually like writing me like, oh no, this poster should be like over here instead of over here. So like oh, you're really like, and you could see like, because in YouTube it shows you like, when we're testing things out, it's a private link, right? So that preview, like those preview videos, each round had like 20 or 30 views.
Yeah.
Like they were really
They're
going
combing it.
through it. And that set the table for me being able to do interviews like uh Scotty Scotty Radford, dearly departed friend of the show. Interviews like Susanna Millman's. I kind of, because of the input and interactivity that I had with Mark and his team, I had this foundation built where I felt really comfortable
Yeah.
in going forward with the template of how I would present the edit. And that in turn then minimized rounds. And I'm not saying that I don't like I love feedback, like good the good, the bad, and the ugly. The more feedback, the better. But being able to learn from situational feedback and then
Absolutely. That's
apply
the whole
it.
point, right? Yeah. What's interesting now, a lot of bands are sending out, even in their initial emails, a list of like do's and don'ts, right? So, like, a lot of the time it's like, don't use excessive drug use, don't use nudity. Um, I was lucky enough to work with Goose this year, and I noticed on their notes it was like, don't use the band likenesses, which on a lot of their past merch they would often like draw little cartoon images of the band.